I have a degree in psychology, and today I'm going to use it to analyze the swift downfall of Don Lemon. This is undoubtedly one of the worst interviews in the history of media. This is The Shani Show.
Thank you for inviting us here.
You're welcome.
Your Tesla headquarters. I'm surprised at how big it is. I've never seen it.
The interview starts off with a compliment about the Tesla factory. Don Lemon makes it personal, and it's well done. It's what all the greats do. Howard Stern and everyone else likes to butter up the guest at the beginning so that later on you can ask the hard-hitting questions. It's just the easiest way to get the guest on your side. Start with a compliment. So far, so good. But not for long.
So I'm here, as you know, I'm on the platform because you say you're a free speech absolutist, right? And there are no conditions.
Yeah.
So already we have the first slip up, to be honest. Don Lemon says you say you're a free speech absolutist. The stutter there matters because it makes it more confrontational than it is. What I would have done here is bring up a tweet where he said he was a free speech absolutist. In this case, it was, Starlink has been told by some governments, not Ukraine, to block Russian news sources. We will not do so unless at gunpoint. Sorry to be a free speech absolutist. Like, I would mention where he's actually said that to provide context and maybe ask, like, you say you're a free speech absolutist, but is there parameters to that? Instead, you just start with this confrontational tone for honestly no reason.
There are no conditions on this interview. You said that, we'll speak to you for an hour. I don't like sound bites, so I welcome that. So let's get into it. So we're here in Austin.
By the way, there is a ton of irony to this. Don Lemon says he doesn't like sound bites. After this interview, he released a video filled with sound bites of Elon Musk posing him as a racist after this, just so you know the irony in that is pretty incredible.
Since South by Southwest is going on, we're at the Tesla headquarters. You are in the process of moving SpaceX here, I understand?
No.
Yeah, like, what the fuck, Don Lemon? If you're going to interview the busiest man on the planet, maybe in the first 2 minutes, try not to get a fact wrong. Do your research, especially when given an opportunity like this.
SpaceX has a massive facility in South Texas where we build and launch Starship.
So you can see here Elon's face. He does not have a relaxed face. This is not a laid-back podcast. And this is Don Lemon's doing in the first 2 minutes. This is not on Elon. This is pretty much the second question was a confrontational one. And that's what you get from your guest. You're going to have their guard be put up. You're going to have them build a wall pretty much saying, look, this is going to be confrontational. I'm ready. It's kind of like a sparring match where in this sort of situation, you want him to be feeling relaxed to then deliver the truth later. So you had it right with the compliment at the beginning, but then you fucked it up pretty much instantly.
Listen, we are here as part of a launch of a news interview show that is going to be on X.com. It's
X.com? Is this the 90s? Like, I have not seen someone refer to an application as a .com.
We also want to expand upon that, and we have done so with long-form content. So instead of just doing what used to be called tweets, you can now do long-form posts. You can post an entire essay. In fact, you can now post an entire book to the platform. You can do long-form video content, so you can do up to 4-hour video segments. We really want news in whatever form it is, or information, I should say, in whatever form it is, to be available on our platform, whether it's short, long, text, pictures, video, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and some of the stuff that we do, long-form video, interview shows, what have you.
Yeah.
What the Okay, Don, he just said he does long-form content on X. Elon just said that. If you've been following his Twitter at all in the last 6 months, he's been talking a lot about how excited he is to release this feature now that it is released. And instead what you did was not listen to him at all and then make it about yourself. You said, and shows like ours. Yeah, a 1-hour show like yours would fall under long-form video content. What you could have done is say, like, how do you think that has impacted journalism? Like, how do you think that has changed being able to deliver the full story versus a little bit of it? Like, you could have made that slightly positive to relax them a little bit more or dig further into it, but instead you just made it about yourself. That's awesome.
What's your point of view? What's Tucker's point of view? And and people can make their own decision about what they believe.
You didn't mean that I'm on the left? Did you think that?
I thought you were on the left, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm used. Well, let's just say I don't know what the left is or the right is, frankly, these days, because things can be quite polarized.
So this is a really important moment here, and Don could have used this to his advantage. He got the first smile out of Elon. He looks very relaxed here. He looks like he's more talking to a friend than in an interview. Watch how Don Lemon decides to mess this up. He managed to do it.
But you seem. My impression was that you're more likely to be described as on the left than the right. My sense is you're sort of center left. I don't know. You tell me.
Well, did you ever watch me on CNN, or did you watch?
I saw
Yeah.
not. I saw segments.
Yeah.
But CNN is generally considered left.
Yeah.
You can tell that your guest is being truthful in a situation like this. So Elon says he could have easily said, yeah, I watched you on CNN, and then be confronted with, oh, like which episode, and say like, well, it was a long time ago that I watched you, and that would have been like what a lot of guests do. But instead, Elon actually tells the truth and says, look, I've only watched segments. After the center left comment, he could have said, well, it depends on the issue, and we can talk about that more later. Instead, he confronts again. Have you ever watched me on CNN? What's with the confrontation? Why? You are accomplishing nothing so far with this tone.
There was an article recently written about you saying that you, Donald Trump, and X were the most important people or places or whatever icons when it comes to the MAGA movement.
If you're going to quote an article, maybe have it in front of you so that you're not stuttering on the actual language of the article, given that it is your question and it is important which words that they used, because you're saying that Elon is important to the MAGA movement, but quoting the article is actually super important because it's stating how he's important to the MAGA movement. So I don't know how in all the index cards you have in front of you that not one of them is the headline of that article.
It wanted to essentially project the SF Berkeley political dogma worldwide.
You think it was far left?
Yes, I do.
I used to get, I actually got off the platform because I would get so much hate tweets when it was called in, so much hate tweets and just guff from right-wing conspiracy theorists being called everything from, fag to...
Sure. It's the internet,
everything.
If people...
Yeah, Don Lemon, as a public figure, every single public figure in history has been called every hateful name in the book. Given that does not mean that the platform was filled with right-wing conspiracy theorists. Also, everyone who's calling you names doesn't necessarily mean they're a right-wing conspiracy theorist. This is the escalating that we see so much from the left. The right is guilty of it too. Not every Democrat is a communist, and not every Republican is a fascist. There is no need for person is hateful, right-wing conspiracy theorists. Like, this is the kind of bullshit that people are tired of.
I've been called every name times 1,000.
Yeah. Do you agree that it's right now and that even it's moved into sort of MAGA land conspiracy theory?
I certainly don't think it's right.
So that was an example of a very, very dumb question. So Twitter has not moved to MAGA land. There is a ton of research behind that, how hate speech has gone down. But someone like Don Lemon's not going to look at that research. They're only going to look at the research that fits their narrative. And asking someone like Elon Musk if they believe that a platform being filled with hate speech is right is a gigantic waste of time. He's obviously going to say no. The purpose of an interview is to ask questions that you actually don't know the answer to. And if you are asking questions that you know the answer to, it should be on a path to then eventually get them to answer a question that you don't know the answer to. But so far, we've gotten no new information whatsoever.
The old school Twitter suspended and suppressed accounts that you'd call on the right 10 times more than they did accounts on the left. And even when they did suspend an account on the left, it was because of arguments between two people on the left. The political donations of old Twitter were 99% Democrat. Does that sound left-wing or right-wing to you?
The Twitter donations?
Yes. You know, when they look at donations from a company, if a company donates literally 99% of all donations are to Democrats, does that strike you as a left-leaning or a right-leaning
Oh, you mean the company donated. I understand what you're saying.
What I'm trying to tell you is...
How do you not understand what he's talking about? So, one, you're a professional listener. So you should. But two, you could have done your research and scrolled through Elon Musk's timeline. And given that he's tweeted about this so much, given that he's posted about it for the last 6 months about how big tech is donating to largely Democrat candidates, you should have known what he was talking about just from the research. Not the fact that you should understand it just by listening, but from your freaking research. You should have someone on your team or you yourself scrolling through the timeline and seeing the things that he cares about. It's insane that you have an hour with the most productive man on the planet, and so far you are asking questions that you could have just Googled. Insane.
Sam, what
I'm trying to tell you is that Twitter employees, people at Twitter, their political donations were 99%, literally 99%, to Democrats. That's obviously an extremely left-leaning group.
My question too, leading into this, was about MAGA. And speaking of MAGA, you recently met with Donald Trump in Florida. What did you guys talk about?
I was at a dinner. I was not done.
So general interview thing is the more that you don't touch upon at all what the person just said and just move on to the next question, the more it feels like an interrogation. Unless you're asking fun questions or eating hot wings together, it will feel more like an interrogation. So when Elon Musk just spent the last minute talking about how employees at Twitter and big tech donate to largely Democrats, and you just completely ignore it and say that my question was about MAGA, you create a confrontational vibe, and that will later bite you in the ass, and you'll see how it does.
What did you guys talk about?
I was at a dinner. I was not done. I was at a breakfast at a friend's place, and Donald Trump came by. That's it.
Do you see Elon Musk's tone now? Do you see that he feels like someone's coming at him? That is not what you want in the first 10 minutes of an hour-long interview.
What did you discuss?
I don't. Let's just say he did most of the talking.
What did you say?
See? Don Lemon, you asked a question that couldn't be Googled, and that's wonderful. You're talking to the man who was actually in the room, and you're saying, what did he talk about? And look at that. Real journalism, and you got to laugh. You could have been doing this from the first minute.
Well, I'll voice my opinion. I think I don't want to put a thumb on the scale monetarily. That is, significant.
Are you going to loan him money to help pay his bills?
No.
Not at all.
See, this is actually journalism. Again, you have a guest that is not giving you exactly what you want. So you play the 20 questions game. You kind of ask more little questions to try to get to the truth. This is a classic interview technique. If you are trying to get to know what sport someone's playing and they won't say it, you say, does it involve a racket? Can you play it indoors? This is journalism. Again, he could have been doing this from the first minute, but don't worry, he fucks it up later in just a second.
So you have been posting up a storm, as you always do in the past couple weeks, about the redesign of the Tesla Roadster coming at the end of this year. Are there any kind of updates that you can talk about to expect from your flagship EV? I mean, Tesla stock is down in the last 6 months. What's next for the company?
Yeah, Don, you really could have asked that question without that last part. You had a nice question. You're asking a person who loves his company and a product that he's been building for a long time about that product. But then you had to sneak in at the end that the stock is going down. What the fuck is that for? What you could have done is separate those questions. You could have had a question about the Roadster and then a question about the stock. You could have said, what do you say to investors that are worried about the stock or whatever? You could have separated those two questions. Instead, you're going to get a confrontation when it's a question about an upcoming product release. There was just no need for that.
I think over 1 million orders for the Cybertruck. It's a really special product. That is. I think the Cybertruck is one of those products that comes along really once in several years, maybe once a decade. I think it's our best product.
But everyone improves over time. I mean, Apple, I thought my phone was here, but Apple, the phone got better over time.
Wrong. Things do not improve over time automatically. Elon's actually said this before, that we think that technology just improves magically over time, but it's people that actually improve it.
They think that technology just automatically improves. It does not automatically improve. It only improves if a lot of people work very hard to make it better.
Tell BlackBerry that things improve over time. Tell Blockbuster that. And you could tell that your guest was very passionate about the Cybertruck. It's a good idea to follow up on things that your guest is passionate about, to try to dig in. And again, that makes your guest feel a lot more relaxed if they're talking about something that they love. But no, instead you decide to just move on, even though he clearly wanted to talk about it.
The Roadster will be a collaboration between SpaceX and Tesla. So, you can expect some rockety stuff there.
A flying car?
Maybe. It's not out of the question.
Go on.
No, I like it.
You can kind of tell Don Lemon's not enjoying that moment with Elon, which is just like, dude, relax. Like, why not enjoy that moment? Why not use that laugh from Elon to your advantage? You want him to feel relaxed. You don't want to push him against the wall because it's not going to help you later to answer the hard-hitting questions. I said that already, but it's like, this is a perfect example of that. The smiles are smug. They're not real, genuine smiles. It's not real laughter. You're going to play the 20 questions games about the Roadster. You're going to say, is it this? Is it that? Is it this? Whatever. That's fine. But again, no new information is going to come out. They're going to, Don's going to ask him about rockets in the car, but we knew about rockets thing in 2021. Like, this is not any new information.
Does it have wings?
No, it does not have big wings, because big wings would be unwieldy on the road.
Does it have propellers?
It does not have propellers.
Okay. It has wheels.
It does have wheels.
Okay.
Do you guys see how the man just wants to talk about the products that he loves? This is a good time to dig into that a little bit and then ask a hard-hitting question. You got to earn the respect. You have to have them enjoy the questions a little bit before you ask the hard questions. Don is going to ask a question about a steering wheel, and it's probably the best thing he asked so far. He was really intelligent. Take a look.
Any questions?
Does it have a steering wheel?
Not exactly.
What is it?
It'll have a drive-by-wire yoke, essentially, kind of like the way aircraft or modern jets are controlled.
And do you think it's the way of the future that everyone will follow your lead on this?
I don't think anyone will ever make anything like the Roadster that we're going to make.
Let's talk now about SpaceX, Tesla. You got a lot of lawsuits. You've got X.com. You got a lot going on. How do you relax?
Yeah, he's got a lot going on. There's more than just lawsuits going on. I mean, you could have mentioned more things. I would have done like 3 positive things, 3 negative things, saying you have a lot going on, and then just being like, you're getting sued. Like, literally every fucking billionaire is getting sued every single day of their lives. Like, this is not anything crazy. What he could have done was something, like I said, being positive. Could have been like, you've been delivering the best-selling car for this many years, but the stock is down, and you're getting sued, and also this. Like, you could have gone good, bad, whatever, but instead you just come with only one negative thing. It's like, why? What are you gaining from that? Nothing.
I like playing video games. So I'll play video games with friends online.
Which one?
I cringe at this because Elon has said, I would probably estimate if you look at all the data more than 1,000 times that he plays Diablo, whether it be replies to tweets, tweeting about it on podcasts. 1,000 may actually be accurate. Like, I'm joking, but it may have been actually 1,000 times that he's mentioned that he plays Diablo. You could have done something. You could have impressed him a little bit of research and said, like, I saw that you like to play Diablo. Why that game in particular? What about it do you get from Diablo that you couldn't get from something like Fortnite? You could have asked that, but instead you decided to just nothing.
Lately I've been playing Diablo, but I've played almost all the games over the years. A long time ago I was like semi-pro good at Quake. This is really dating me.
Again, nothing new. He's already said all of this on the Lex Friedman podcast. What you want to do when you're interviewing someone is not ask the exact same questions that someone else had. So part of your prep is to look at other interviews. I don't understand how someone like Don Lemon wouldn't do the very basic prep for an interview. It's very, very, very odd.
because we're talking about 125 years ago.
I don't know video games. I just know that my great nephew loves Fortnite and some other stuff. He's always with the headphones and doing the thing. So that
it's just cringe, like comparing Elon Musk to your fucking grandnephew. Like, okay, great. All ages play video games. There's no need to reply with this unbelievably extremely boomer statement of being like, oh, I can only relate to you through my child or through my nephew. It's ridiculous.
Listen, I'm not asking you anything that anyone else hasn't asked you about your controversial stuff that you tweet. You post a lot of controversial stuff. Is that considered blowing off steam?
I just can't get over that. He's like, I haven't asked anything that someone else hasn't asked. Why the fuck are you asking it then? Like,
I do enjoy using the platform. I mean, I do call the X platform the PvP, or player versus player platform.
So you do a lot of it at night, like late at night. So when you're doing this, are you sober when you do it?
Almost always, yeah.
That's what you could have asked a funny question like that first. Instead of going through the last 2 minutes of him asking questions that he's been asked several times already. Could have just asked that. It could have been kind of funny if he just had asked that.
The influence of anything?
No, I don't drink. I don't really. No.
So you got no drink, no smoke, no nothing. I mean, you smoke pot with Rogan.
I had one puff.
Yeah.
I think anyone who smokes pot can tell I don't know how to smoke pot.
But you've admitted that you have a ketamine prescription.
Yeah.
What's that for?
Well, I mean, it's pretty private to ask somebody about it.
Whoa, dude. Like, really? You want to ask that right then? Okay, advice on asking a question like that. If you're going to go down that road, make it personal. If you had made it personal, being like, I have been recommended ketamine in the past for my depression, then you could have actually formed an actual bond with the guest. Instead, you just surprise attack him like this. Super dumb. You're lucky that it's Elon in this interview. If it wasn't Elon, and I would say most actors, actresses, famous people would have just left at that point, just asking them why they take ketamine out of nowhere. It's insanely distasteful and in poor form.
If someone has depression issues, they should consider talking to their doctor about ketamine instead of SSRIs.
Listen, I think that ketamine and drug therapy is...
It's subtle, but being like, listen, it puts you in this authority position. Like, when I would think someone to say, hey, listen, it's a teacher, a father, I wouldn't do the, well, listen to Elon fucking Musk as an interviewer. Like, that is not correct. Why would you put yourself above him in that sense? The listen thing could also be amongst friends. Like, listen, I think that that's normal. But in this paradigm that has been created in this interview, Don Lemon's listen was just weird.
Listen, I think that ketamine and drug therapy is increasingly becoming more in the mainstream.
Yeah.
Do you think you're doing it under a doctor's care?
Imagine hearing that without the listen at the beginning. Just, I think ketamine is getting more popular. It would have been so much friendlier. Instead, it's listen.
Right?
Yeah. Literally a prescription from a real doctor, not like,
Yeah, but do you feel like you ever abuse it?
Instead of do you abuse it, when you know the answer is going to be no, because you're interviewing a guy who is in charge of the most valuable car company in the world, he's not going to be like, yeah, I abuse ketamine all the fucking time, dude. No, what you could have asked was, does it ever get difficult to not use it when you have an important thing coming up or something like that? Like, does it ever get difficult? Instead of being like, do you abuse it? Like, what is the point of asking that question? I'll tell you what the point was. Nothing. There's no point.
What I find ketamine is if you like literally like a chemical state in your brain that you can't just think yourself out of, then ketamine is helpful for getting you out of a depressive mind state.
You suffer from depression, or you have a depressive mind state? And I asked you as someone who has suffered.
Okay, yeah, good save coming up about saying like that I suffer from depression here. Good fucking save. Because if you look at how he asked that question, why do you have a smirk when you ask that, dude. What? Like, that is such a weird way to ask that question. You could have asked it like, do you suffer from, like, show empathy? Like, what the fuck? Like, be like, or do you feel like you suffer from depression? Like, ask it with purpose and kindness and be respectful. Don't be like, hey, you suffer from depression? Like, what? Like you're a lion for ready to devour its meat. It's so weird.
Then
take a look.
Ketamine is helpful for getting you out of a depressive mind state.
You suffer from depression, or you
like he's like he's like giddy. He's like, oh, I'm gonna catch him. Like, what the fuck?
I mean, some people are just wired to be happy all the time. Some are unfortunately wired to be sad a lot of the time. And in my case,
Do you see the empathy that Elon had in the way he said that? That's like a normal human being talking. It's like to wired to be sad all the time. You can see in his eyes, if you watch that, I'll show you again of how he says that. But it's extremely validating for me and a lot of folks to see that Elon, the most successful person on the planet, is talking about how some people are wired to be sad. Like, that's a really awesome thing for someone as prominent as him to say publicly. Yeah.
Unfortunately wired to be sad a lot of the time. And in my case, I'm generally pretty positive and optimistic.
Do you ever worry that this may get in the way of your government contracts and clearances, and also and Wall Street as well?
Tesla is worth about as much as the rest of the car industry combined, from nothing. So that's pretty good. As I mentioned, we had the best-selling car on Earth last year. So for an investor standpoint, if there is something I'm taking, I should keep taking it.
Look at that. I love that. That face from Elon. That's like his freaking Giga Chad look of him.
I should keep taking it.
He's like, yeah, I mean, that's probably the most badass thing he's ever said. And it's true. Yeah, like, don't fuck with someone who is has got a rhythm. Like, there's just, yeah, that was a really, really brilliant answer.
Have you talk about your ketamine use and depression? Have you also have said, and
the reason I should say, the reason I mentioned the ketamine prescription on the X platform was because I thought maybe this is something that could help other people. That's why I mentioned it.
Yeah. Can we talk about the great replacement theory now?
That was a really nice thing to say. Don Lemon could have definitely did a quick follow-up on that and just a slight compliment and be like, that's a nice thing for you to do. Like, given that Don Lemon has also said that he suffers from depression, he could have mentioned something about it instead of just going straight to, again, another confrontation that you'll see in a second. This is the worst one, by the way.
Legal immigrants, which I think have a very strong bias to, at least everything I've read, it's a very strong bias to vote Democrat. The more that come into the country, the more they're likely to vote in that direction. But it is, in my view, a simple incentive to increase Democrat voters. And
I think it's important to match the vibe of your person that you're interviewing, the interviewee. And if you look at how confrontational this thing is, his little head shake like this, but you could have done something more upward, like a friendlier nod up. Instead, you're like shaking your head, disapproval like that. There's no need for that when your interviewee is not at all behaving that way. It's not necessary.
And yeah,
Look at that. What is that?
So the question is like how? So there's a few ways that this works. One is that when the census is done, the census is based on all people in an area, whether they are citizens or not. So if there are a concentration of people who came here illegally in a particular state or in a particular state, that state will actually then get an increased number of House seats. So the House seat apportionment is proportionate to the number of people, not the number of citizens. So the illegals overwhelmingly go to places like California, New York, and if you just look at the math, if you look at the apportionment with and without illegals, I believe California would lose. I believe the blue state, there would be a net loss of blue states of approximately 20 seats in the House. This also applies to the Electoral College.
See that smug smile that nod that goes down. I'll watch show you that again. It is so unbelievably condescending.
This also applies to the. But my understanding is that there would be that the Democrats would lose approximately 20 seats in the House if illegals were not counted in the census, and that's also 20 less electoral votes for president. So the illegals absolutely do affect the who controls the House and who controls the presidency. It does not affect the Senate.
Yeah. In blue states, you're talking about. I
Yes.
don't believe that your information on that is right. So listen.
Okay, so you're going to end that segment with, I don't think your information on that is correct. When your interviewee just talked for about 3 minutes about the Electoral College, about everything that you asked him about, you're going to end it with, I don't think your information is correct. Don Lemon, you created an atmosphere that is extremely confrontational. Now's the time to support your claim of that not being correct. State your case. Don't say, I don't think that information is correct, and then now you're going to move on to some bullshit conspiracy theory. But it's like, that is no way to treat your interviewee, especially, like I said, under the circumstance. If you're going to create this atmosphere, follow it up with actual research.
More about the Great Replacement, because the first time that you posted on X about this Jewish conspiracy, you ended up
I
apologizing.
didn't call it a conspiracy. I just said that there's a simple matter.
Yeah, and so this is when the interview becomes a trial, no longer an interview. Anyone with slightly more than 2 brain cells would know that Elon Musk is not an anti-Semite. He has many Jewish friends. He went to Israel after the horrible October 7 massacre, wears the chain to bring back the hostages, went to Auschwitz with Ben Shapiro. It's very clear that the man is not anti-Semitic. But instead, we're going to insult him and say, part of this Jewish conspiracy. I mean, why? You want to spend your precious time with this guy on this bullshit? Really?
You don't need a conspiracy when you have basic incentives. In my view, there's a basic incentive that is fundamental that for the Democrat Party to foster and usher in a large number of illegals. Yeah. And you don't need a conspiracy in that case because you have a very basic incentive. You could say I'm wrong about that incentive, but that's my view. I'm not buying some great replacement theory. I'm simply saying there appears to be a very clear incentive for Democrats to maximize the number of illegals because it helps them win elections.
I'm talking about the Great Replacement theory is also part of a Jewish conspiracy theory. And when you did the tweet, or you responded to the tweet about that, you ended up apologizing, and which I think is, it's good that you ended up apologizing. You went to Auschwitz with Ben.
What do you mean, like, it's good that you ended up apologizing? Like, what are you, his dad? Like, who the fuck are you to say it's good that you ended up apologizing? You could have said something a little bit more personal if you wanted to go down that route. You could have said, it was nice to see that you apologized for that because I felt like you were misunderstood. Or, like, did you feel like you were misunderstood and is that what prompted you to apologize? Like, whatever it was, you could have asked about the specifics about the apology, not have just said, it's good that you ended up apologizing. You're not some oracle, some perfect guy that decides what's good and what's bad in this interview. This is preposterous.
It's good that you ended up apologizing. You went to Auschwitz.
And that's why you get Elon's, this is when Elon was like, get the fuck off my platform. Like, this is exactly probably when Elon was like, I'm not paying for this contract anymore. You can post on X and you'll still get advertising revenue because I believe in free speech, but I'm over this. Because, you know what I mean? Like, it's good you ended up apologizing. Just remember how stupid that is.
Auschwitz with Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
Right? So you said you learned your lesson. What did you learn?
I said I learned my lesson.
You said you learned your lesson when you apologized, and you said you went to Auschwitz. You saw what.
It's such an obvious attempt to just gaslight him. He was obviously not talking about the visit to Auschwitz. Like, you think the most intelligent person on the planet, or one of the most intelligent people on the planet, doesn't know about the atrocities that took place there? It's not like he was learning about it for the first fucking time. Like, this is an example of, like, really screwing up an interview pretty hard.
I said I learned my lesson.
You said you learned your lesson when you apologized, and you said you went to Auschwitz. You saw what
No, I was already aware of these things. And the nature of my comment that really inflamed people, what I was...
Okay, do you see how what he could have said to take away that confrontation is he could have said, what were you referring to when you said I learned my lesson? That's it. It's all you had to ask. Instead, you gaslight with the Auschwitz comment.
A number of prominent Jewish philanthropists fund groups that they should really take a closer look at funding, because some of the groups they fund, I think, are anti-Semitic.
Yeah. Do you understand the connection between the two?
That is very true, by the way. I'm a Jew, and I know firsthand that some of the most anti-Semitic people I know are Jewish. It's a real thing. Just look at Bobby Fischer. You know, if you don't know what I'm talking about, Google it. He was the most successful chess player in the world, and he was a vicious anti-Semite that was Jewish.
There's a connection between, you said Democrats, the Great Replacement Theory, but when it comes to the actual Great Replacement Theory, originally it was started about Jewish people, as you said, flooding in the country, and then now people are using it for Democrats, saying the same thing about Democrats.
This is the face. This is the face of you're gonna gaslight me again with comparing Democrats having people come over the border illegally to then vote for a Democrat to a wild neo-Nazi theory. Like, this is the biggest gaslighting interview I've ever seen. This is I wouldn't be surprised if Elon really considered right there to just leave the interview. It's ridiculous if that wouldn't make him look bad, right? So it's kind of a tough decision to leave right there because it makes him look guilty of that. But I'm sure wanted to at that point.
Flooding.
In my view, it's a simple matter of incentives.
Yeah.
I actually don't see an incentive for Jewish people to want to have legal immigration. I don't think there is such an incentive.
51 people in the Muslim mosque were murdered. 23 people murdered in El Paso by a shooter who used the same language that you use in that manifesto when you say Hispanic invasion. Is that not?
I didn't say an Hispanic invasion.
And you quoted a tweet that called it a Hispanic invasion.
If I quote something, it doesn't mean I agree with everything in it. It's just something that I think this is something worth people should consider.
Why would you quote something that you didn't believe?
Because anything I quote is...
Did a journalist just ask that question? Why would you quote something that you don't believe? That's like 90% of what journalists do. They quote something they don't believe in and they counter it. Like, or you quote something and you talk about it. It's not to say that every time you quote something you believe with everything that they said. That's ridiculous, especially for a journalist to say that.
Going to have a whole range of statements. Doesn't mean I agree with everything in it.
Do you think if you moderated yourself more, if there was better content moderation on the platform, that you wouldn't have to answer these questions from reporters about the Great Replacement Theory as it relates to
Democrats? I don't
Democrats,
have to answer these questions.
The Great Replacement Theory as it relates to Jewish people? Do you think that?
I don't have to answer questions from reporters. Don, the only reason I'm doing this interview is because you're on the X platform and you asked for it. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I would not do this interview.
So you don't think? Do you think that you wouldn't get in trouble or you wouldn't be criticized for these things?
I'm criticized constantly. I could care less.
You don't care?
No, I don't.
Why
care.
not?
I don't think people should care what the media thinks about them.
See that slight smile from Elon? This smile is very important. This is him saying, you know what? Let's fucking go, man. You want to treat this like a fight? Let's fight. Because there's a common saying which is like you either cry or you laugh. And this is basically Elon laughing. He's like, you know what? This is such a dumpster fire interview. I may as well enjoy this bullshit. That's what it is.
X.com, or you have any responsibility to the truth or moderating the platform?
You're conflating the truth with the media, and I think the media is not truthful.
It doesn't concern you that hate speech has gone. Research shows that it's gone up on the platform since you took over.
Oh, here we go with this bullshit. We already did this. The BBC reporter already failed at this. Why must every single interview from a left-leaning news organization with Elon Musk be about the rise of hate speech on X when it's not true? Why must we do this? Because it gets clicks? Well, it ends up not helping Don Lemon's case. Let me tell you, his last couple shows have perform terribly because this interview was such a dumpster fire. So no, this was not a smart question to ask.
But that's not concerning to you?
I believe that is false. In fact, the research that I've seen says it went down. How many times was hate content viewed on our platform? It is down substantially.
Yeah. Well, that's not was what the study shows. And you said you like transparency. I'm going to show you this. And
Don, you can get a study that will tell you whatever you want.
But these are just a handful of extremely. You look at those anti-Semitic and racist tropes and tweets. You're putting your thumb on the scale for moderating hate speech. I mean, you don't put out child pornography. That's not.
It's illegal.
That's not.
So this was probably the dumbest thing Don Lemon did during the whole interview, which says a lot because it's a speed run of how to ruin your career in an hour. But asking about child pornography under free speech when Elon Musk has already said about 5 times that he draws the line at it being illegal, child pornography is illegal. Anti-Semitic posts are not illegal. It's stupid and should not happen, but it's not illegal. And he also explains that obviously, if you have a platform that grows a lot, there will be more posts about everything. And he explained how those posts aren't getting views. But instead, we're going to take it a step further and say that he isn't really for free speech because there isn't child pornography on the platform, but there is anti-Semitic posts. And therefore, he's against child pornography, but he's for anti-Semitism. Like, what? Like,
Some people would say that's considered censorship. I'm just saying, you.
No, I literally, Don, I literally said, if something is legal, okay, we will obviously remove it.
Okay.
But if it is not legal, the laws in this country are put forward by the citizens. We're a democracy. If those laws are put in place by the people, we adhere to those laws.
Okay, I
we adhere to
agree.
the laws of others. If you go beyond the law, you're actually going beyond the will of the people.
Okay, agreed. With the law.
okay. You could have just said, I agree. But you added this with the law part. See that? It's subtle. But it's Don Lemon's way of saying, let's continue this fight. Now let's continue this interview. Let's continue this fight. Because what it infers is, I disagree with you on everything else. It wasn't, I agree. It was, I agree, but just the part with the law. The rest of the stuff you said was bullshit. That's what it indicates. Okay? And that's why, or part of why this interview continues to get only worse.
But if you are doing something that promotes hate and violence and ultimately leads to killing, you don't feel you have any responsibility not to do that? When the people who are doing it admittedly are saying...
There's articles all the time that lead to violence and killing. Don't they? Shouldn't they? Like you're applying a differential standard to.
But that would never be in mainstream media. These types of images, that type of language.
Yeah, no shit, Don Lemon, because you guys are having a few shows a day on CNN. You do a few articles, and Musk will say that in a minute. But it's not just the fact that you guys don't do as many shows. You know, say X is doing hundreds of millions of posts a day. It's harder to moderate that than a few posts on CNN. But the bigger issue is that Don Lemon is accusing Musk of not moderating these things when Don Lemon has talked about shootings thousands of times in his life and has profited from disaster his entire life. Those stories that he does on shootings, like any other news reporter, is part of the reason why criminals do what they do, to get on the news, to get fame. So I don't understand how Don Lemon is not guilty of the exact same thing. He could have had something cool to say about that. He could have said, yeah, you know, we're in the same boat. Do you report or do you not report? No, instead, he just goes into accusing Musk instead of being able to relate to him at all. And that's just really stupid.
We'd never, when I was in mainstream media, we'd never promote things that would be anti-Semitic. We would never promote things that would
either.
Did you not see those?
Wow. You're going to treat your interviewee like that? Did you not see those? He's Elon fucking Musk, dude. Like, I wouldn't say that to a first grader, let alone Elon Musk. I wouldn't say, did you not see those? It's so condescending. Oh my God. Like, imagine. Like, Imagine anyone talking to you that way. Your boss, your friend, your teacher, your parents, doesn't matter. It's so unbelievably condescending. Did you not see those? Obviously he said they're not promoting them. He's going to say that. But the point is like, it having one view is a lot different than having 10,000, and accusing him of not seeing something in this super passive aggressive way is just horrible.
You said promote. If content is on the platform, that doesn't mean we promote it.
But that wouldn't be on a platform for mainstream media at all.
No, but you can think of that. That's because the mainstream media has like, whatever, 20 articles a day. We have 500 million posts a day.
Okay,
500
understood.
million.
Does it bother you? How do you feel about that when you see it?
You see how this could make anyone cringe? Like, how do you feel when you see... What are you hoping for, Don Lemon? What are you hoping for? Are you hoping that he says, no, it doesn't bother me, I'm a free speech absolutist and everything is welcome? No, of course he doesn't like it. Of course anyone who has a properly wired brain, that bothers them. So you're going to spend your precious time, we're now over the halfway mark of the interview, and you're going to spend the time into trying to bait Elon Musk into being an anti-Semite.
I obviously disagree with that. I think it's not good at all. It's terrible.
But you don't want to get rid of it on the platform, or at least moderate it.
The rules, what you're suggesting is censorship that goes beyond the law. And what I'm saying is, I
see that. Boy, that should never happen. I explained that earlier about the whole like thing from Don Lemon. It's just the dude was talking. Like, you're interrupting. You were trying to interrupt him, and he was finishing what he had to say. It would be very different if Don Lemon, you were talking and he interrupted you, but no. Watch it again.
What you're suggesting is censorship that goes beyond the law. And what I'm saying is,
I mean, he was talking. The dude was talking, and you tried to interrupt him, and you got shut the fuck down because he hadn't finished what he was saying.
I guess have a disagreement, because I do not believe in censorship that goes beyond the law, and you do. We have a difference of opinion in that regard.
Your own content policy. That's why I'm asking you that, not because...
Which part of our content policy says that we should delete these things?
Your content policy talks about hate speech.
All right, Don Lemon. All right. If you're going to talk about his fucking content policy, you should be able to have it in front of you and read directly from it. Do you expect Elon Musk to have his content policy memorized that someone else probably did and he just approved it? Like, how do you not have that section of the policy in front of you? How do you not have that in front of you? That would be my question. That is the thing that I just, when I was watching this for the first time, I couldn't believe that he didn't have that printed out in front of him. Just zero excuse for a world-class journalist, or was a world-class journalist, to do this.
Yes, we don't promote hate speech.
And so you don't consider that hate speech?
I guess you're not understanding what I'm saying.
He already said he doesn't promote it. He has gone over it now the third time that he's going over this now. It's an example of how to throw your career away in 37 minutes.
Much like the internet. It's not some tiny publication with like 20 articles a day. It's 500 million.
But everyone has the opportunity to read it, Elon.
Actually, no. The whole point of what he has just said for the last now 10 minutes is that if it gets one view, not everyone has the opportunity to read it. That's the whole point.
Everyone has the opportunity to read the internet. Are you suggesting we should shut down the internet?
No, but you don't own the internet. I'm asking you about you and your responsibility on your platform. And so I see how you feel now. You don't agree. We don't agree on this.
Yes, you want censorship and I don't.
No, I don't want censorship at all.
Yes, you do.
See that smile? It's a smile of let's fight, because that's the atmosphere Don Lemon created.
That there is a certain responsibility that goes along with what you have on your platform and what you put out to the world. And I think that's important. You don't see that responsibility.
You know, it's funny. Everyone always comes to Elon about these points about how, oh, he must like hate speech because there's so much of it on the platform. They never once come with a solution of how to deal with it. They don't consult with a software engineer to create an algorithm. They don't strategize on what could be done in plain English with this. No. Instead, they just accusation after accusation after accusation. This is not journalism. This is interrogation.
you point to medicine. You claim that DEI programs are putting people at risk. Do you really believe this to be true? And what evidence do you have to support it?
What I was referring to there was that if we lower the standards for doctors, such so that they, if the test for a doctor is lowered, then the probability of them making a mistake and killing someone is obviously going to be higher.
Wait, say that again. I'm not sure I understand what you said.
How do you not understand what he just said? Like, if this was someone, this is like a 5th grader, I'd be like, no problem. You're supposed to be a world-class journalist, a professional listener. How do you not understand what he's saying here?
If I say something that is inaccurate, I'm immediately corrected on the platform. That's the advantage of a real-time system like X. So there will be immediately in the replies people correcting me. There will be a community note that will correct me, which is attached to the actual post itself.
Do you think as many people read
Yes.
You think as many people read that as it reads your tweet?
Yes, in fact, and if there's a community note that happens later that where somebody didn't see, but they replied to that or interacted with that post, we will notify them that there is now a community note correcting that post.
Mm-hmm. Just so you.
Whereas if you consider the conventional media, that doesn't happen. Conventional media makes false statements all the time and nobody ever hears the correction.
When I was in conventional media, I can only speak for myself. If I got something wrong, or if someone got something wrong on the platform that I was on, it was corrected, and we made sure that it was corrected.
Yeah, how you correct a live broadcast, or you put it up, you say something at 4 p.m., it goes live at 8 to 9 p.m., and you correct it by putting it in some article at 11 p.m. when the person who watched it at 8 is already asleep. Like, they're not going to get a notification for it. They're not going to get any alert for that. So, no, in fact, that's not the case. You can see here of who they're looking for, and this is for nurses. So
medical standards, DEI is causing medical standards to be lowered. Do you actually believe people are dying because of that?
So here we have Don Lemon asking the same question 37 times, and I honestly, I'm not going to show you more of that because you've seen it, and also it's just ridiculous. It's very clear what Musk is saying. If you lower standards to becoming a doctor, people will die because people that are doctors shouldn't necessarily be doctors because the tests are easier and it's just easier to become a doctor. It makes complete sense. Now, you can see like Washington State is looking to remove the bar for DEI to becoming a lawyer, making it so that people might lose court cases that they shouldn't otherwise lose. This is happening. And what Musk is saying is not that it is happening widespread right now, but rather that it could happen and will happen. And that's what Don Lemon should be asking about. He should be asking about, why do you think companies are doing this? What is the best way, in your opinion, to make things more merit-based? How could we improve on the current testing for doctors? Is there a way to, improve on the MCAT? Is there a way to improve on the process to getting into medical school? All of those things. But instead, we're going to spend the entire time talking about something that he's already tweeted about and explained.
Most doctors now are white, and there are lots of mistakes in medicine. So you're saying that white doctor?
What is this? Look. Like, why? Why not be like, so are you saying, I feel like respect is minimum here. Given the circumstances of the interview, there is no need for this. Like, I'm sure Don Lemon would know that after he behaved like this in an interview, anyone that disagrees with him wouldn't enjoy an interview with him. Why would you want to be treated this way? Well, who would want to be treated that way? Nobody.
Doctors have bad medical.
Look at that smug smile. Like he's just caught someone in a lie when he hasn't.
Care? I'm trying to understand your logic here when it comes to DEI because there's no actual evidence of what you're saying.
I'm just trying to understand rhetoric is very, very passive aggressive. Just imagine, and I'm sure this has happened to you once in your life. It's definitely happened to me. I say something that someone disagrees with, and I know that they understand what I'm saying. And instead of saying for me to elaborate on it or to explain what I mean by that, saying just so I just don't understand is so passive aggressive because you're basically saying to the person, you're not describing yourself well. I, a smart person, can't even understand you. So can you explain it again? There's no need for the passive aggressiveness, especially when you're interviewing Elon Musk. There's never a need for that ever, in any situation ever. It's not needed.
Is asked to do a series of operations under the supervision of a senior surgeon, and they get a bunch of those operations wrong. If that happens, and yet they are still approved to be a surgeon, the probability that someone will die, I think, at some point is high.
Okay, I understand that, but that's a hypothetical. That doesn't mean it's happening.
I didn't say it's happening.
You guys, you can see the amount of confrontation rising and him becoming more and more disrespectful. Like, okay, this behavior from him, these mannerisms are just so disrespectful. You can see Elon's face here being like, dude, calm down. Like, I wasn't saying that. You see that? Like, he should have had this interview in a freaking UFC cage, because that's what it feels more fit for.
You didn't say it was happening.
I said it will. I said if we lower standards, people will die.
What is that laugh? Like, you said, she said, he said, all this stuff is pointless in an hour-long interview that you should have prepared for and come with the screenshots of the tweets and said, boom, this is when you said that, this is when you said this, and read directly from it. Instead, viewers have to listen to you, Don Lemon, saying, but you said. Pull up the fucking tweet.
Only 5% of doctors in America are black. All of them are white. So are you saying...
In fact, no, not all doctors are white. Only 56% of doctors are white. I can show you this pie chart here. This is not all of them are white. Apparently 56% equals all now.
That's what that's what that article suggested, yes. At Duke University.
Okay. The evidence that I have shows that that's not true.
Okay.
So listen, after the door blew
So
off
show
this mid-flight missile...
So show the fucking evidence so you can talk about it. The evidence I have doesn't have that. Okay, so then what you should do is talk about how the evidence was generated, how the study was conducted, who conducted it, but instead you're doing the same bullshit you did last time, which was the information you said wasn't correct. The evidence I have is different. What a way to have a conversation. It's not a conversation. Again, it's an interrogation.
Alaskan Airlines flight, do you remember that? You responded to a post claiming that the average HBCU grad was less intelligent than the average airline pilot, and stated that it will take an airplane crashing and killing hundreds of people for them to change this crazy policy of DIE. I don't know if did you misspell it on purpose, which it should be DEI.
Oh my, you fucking prick. Like, really? You're gonna do a spelling mistake on this dude right now and say it should have been DEI when you guys have been talking about DEI for 30 minutes and Elon Musk has been talking about it for years or a year or something? I pretty much, he knows what DEI stands for. Yeah. And how to fucking spell. What a douchebag.
Do you believe that women and minority pilots are inherently less intelligent and less skilled than white male pilots?
What the fuck is the point of that question, Don Lemon? Do you think Elon Musk, even if he believed a heinous thing like that he would say it to you in public, on air, whatever? I mean, Jesus. Considering that, again, you have 15 more minutes with this guy, and you're deciding to spend it by hoping to catch him, this like gotcha journalism, hoping to catch him saying that something that would lead to him to fit your narrative of Elon Musk being a white supremacist. That's all you're trying to do, is just fit the narrative. Instead of actually getting a real answer out of him, you're going to say, do you believe they're less intelligent? What a dumb thing to ask.
No, I'm just saying that we should not lower the standards for them.
Okay. But there's no evidence that standards are being lowered when it comes to the airline industry.
You've repeatedly said that there's no evidence that standards are being lowered, and watch the replies showing all the evidence that it is.
I do hope that happens, and I look forward to it. As you said, if you're wrong, then you're wrong, and if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm glad we're having this conversation, debate. This is what we should be doing.
Don Lemon is behaving this way because he realized how much he fucked up, and he's trying desperately to crawl his back way into Elon's good graces, but it's way too late.
I'm saying we should not lower standards.
But you don't?
That's it.
I think everyone can agree that you shouldn't lower standards.
Great. That's
But you're
all.
implying that they're lowering standards because of people of color or women because someone is not a white male.
I don't think everyone would agree on that, first of all. And second of all, it's very evident what Elon is saying. Don't lower standards by any means necessary, not for DEI purposes or any other reason. That's all he's been saying this entire segment.
Do you know that studies show?
Studies show.
Yeah, well, we can look them up. Well,
See, that's the classic, right? And that's why you get this amazing response from Elon here. Is like this studies show thing, it makes Elon laugh. Because if you're going to bring up the studies show thing, you better be instantly ready to talk about how that study was conducted and who conducted it. Otherwise, it's completely useless because my baby nephew can conduct tons of studies. He can say that babies, on average, prefer the color red over blue. Sample size, 1. This is fucking stupid to bring up something like studies show and then instantly bring up this confrontation and a fight on it now.
so your reaction to studies show, and I understand, right? Because I always like to point to an exact study, right?
Sure.
Something that is factual. It's the same thing when you talk about, well, let's see what the replies are on Twitter or on X.
Yeah, so
So I feel the same. I feel the same way about that. But this is what studies have shown, and people will reply and they'll say that companies with more diverse.
And he's still not saying how they can conduct it. And he's super passive aggressively says that, well, I like to pull from facts, whereas you like to pull from comments on Twitter. It's so passive aggressive and so rude.
I want to ask you about there's a federal government EEOC. They are also currently involved in a lawsuit against Tesla that alleges that there's a.
Also, why is the camera moving here? Can we put it on a tripod and have a dynamic camera moving between the two faces if necessary? But why is the camera on Don Lemon moving? That camera should never be moving.
History of widespread racial harassment against black Tesla employees, as well as a pattern of retaliation for speaking out. What do you say to that?
I don't believe that is true. I think we've got a very good. Like if you walk around the Tesla Fremont plant, I think it's a very good atmosphere. In fact, I practically lived there for 3 years trying to make the production work.
Were you aware, if you lived there, were you aware of such behavior?
I never saw it.
So you're saying that this is not true, it's not happening.
What's the point of asking that, Don Lemon? Like, did you see any behavior like that on the factory floor? Again, you're asking questions you know the answer to. All you're trying to do is catch him, but you're not going to catch him because he's not guilty. And he's going to answer no because, one, the answer is no. And again, like he's saying, there's 20,000 people on the floor. Like, what is he supposed to be there at every single conversation? If something remotely racist is mentioned, he needs to be right there to fire the person? Like, I don't understand.
I did not.
Let's talk about trans rights and the woke mind virus, because you've talked about that a lot. You're right about that a lot on the thing. You have been deeply outspoken about the issue of trans rights. You posted trans rights. You posted that pronouns in bio mean the woke mind virus ate your brain. Do you know what the term woke actually means?
Here we go. Teacher Don Lemon coming in. Teacher Don Lemon. You could ask that in a non-condescending way. You could be like, I feel like people have used this word so much that potentially we've forgotten what it means. I was looking at the definition yesterday, in fact, and it was this. That would be like a normal, nice way to bring it up. Instead, he comes into Professor Don Lemon coming in, going to educate Elon.
To me, it's just being aware of inequities in society.
Why are you babying the richest man in the world? What is this?
Being aware of facts and history. But that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean a lot to a whole lot of people who aren't able to take advantage of the opportunities that you were able to take advantage of, simply because the color of your skin.
What advantages did my color of my skin give me?
Well, there's an ease that you have in society that many people of color don't. You were able to come to this country voluntarily. There are many people who were not able to come to the country voluntarily. There are people who came here as
very difficult
slaves.
for me to come here.
Yeah, so you could have had the slightest bit of empathy here, Don Lemon, actually, and done a little bit of research, which obviously you didn't, but Musk had to get a Canadian passport and go through Canada to get to the United States. It was not easy for him. He didn't just get on a plane and come here. or walk through a border. That was not the case. He came here legally, and it required a lot of effort. And you could have mentioned that, but you didn't.
Not understanding the history of the country, I think, is a real shame. Look,
We should understand the history of the country and other countries.
I've had incredible opportunities as a person of color.
Right.
But I've also
You're doing very well.
But I've also been discriminated against, and I know that I have. And I know that that's real. And for someone to say that that isn't happening, I should just move forward and not think about that and ignore the past is insulting.
I'm not saying it. Don, you keep putting words in my mouth. I'm not saying it's
I didn't say that you said it.
I'm saying that we want
He
to
panics.
move beyond
He
questions.
panics here and saying, "I didn't say that you said it," when pretty clearly he's alluding to that. And he panics because the truth is Musk hasn't said that. When people say that they need to move on from something, it's not to say to forget about it. It's to say, learn everything you can and move to the next thing. He's not saying forget about racism. No, he's saying that we shouldn't constantly talk about it because then it won't get better.
I don't know what it's like to be a white man. I don't know what it's like to be a woman. I don't know what it's like to be a Latino person. I don't know that. So I wouldn't speak for them and just say, you need to move on. That's not for me to say.
Don Lemon had just said earlier that I didn't say that you said that. That's what he said to Elon. When right now he's saying that Elon said that.
You think that everyone has the same opportunities in America, regardless of their background and ethnicity? Do you agree?
No, I don't think everyone has the same opportunities.
Okay.
That's all you had to ask. That whole conversation could have been saved if you had just asked that. And you're like, you get that answer from him, that's fine. You go to the next thing. But instead, you just had to berate him for 5 minutes.
So when you talk about, let's talk about trans rights. When you decided to talk about the trans rights movement, you said that it was a woke mind virus. Why do you believe the trans rights movement is a woke mind virus? What do you mean by woke mind virus?
Why ask that in such a condescending way? Why not just say, what do you mean by the woke mind virus? Why not? What do you mean by the woke? Like, what is that? Why? It's so condescending. It's so rude. And this is actually the face that Elon makes because he's figuring out, okay, how do I get out of this contract with Don Lemon? How do I make sure I'm not paying him to be on my platform? Yes, he can get ad revenue, but this is the face of like, get me out. Like, get me the fuck out of this interview right now. Look at this face.
Is a woke mind virus. What do you mean by woke mind virus?
Woke mind virus is when you stop caring about people's skills and their integrity, and you start focusing instead on gender and race and other things that are different from that.
Okay.
And we've got a little bit more time, so
yeah.
you choose your question.
Okay, okay, thank you for that. But I would appreciate you answering these. I think it's important that we're doing this. I think it's important to the world to hear this, especially what's going on in our country. The reason I ask you, listen, there are a whole lot of things that people maybe have questions about.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but saying like this is really important and the world needs to hear this. You've gotten almost an hour with Elon Musk. Maybe be a little grateful for that and be like, oh, thank you. Okay, I'll get to these last questions right now. Instead, you'd be like, I think it's really important. I'm like, I don't know, dude. Been talking to him for an hour. It's not like, you've been talking to him for 5 minutes.
So why can't people choose to identify with the gender that they feel comfortable with or use a pronoun? Isn't that part of freedom of expression?
I guess no. They can ask others to do whatever they feel. They can ask others to do anything. It's a different question whether they mandate that others do that thing.
Okay. Let's talk more about free speech and for advertisers, right? Because
that would have actually been a really brilliant thing to talk about, because there's a difference between saying it's not okay to be transgender versus saying you must not call a transgender this name or you go to jail or something like that. Like, those are very different things, and they could have explored that because that's a really important conversation to have. But instead, we're just going to move over to more accusations about advertising.
So you said if they kill the company, it's them. But doesn't the buck stop with you? I mean, you're
John, I have to say, choose your question carefully. There's 5 minutes left.
Okay, but so
Is this the question you want to ask?
The same question is you said that they are.
So that's basically the final nail in the coffin. That's basically saying, look, like, fuck you. Elon's saying that if advertisers keep leaving, they can't function as a company, is true. He would have to scramble for revenue elsewhere, and that would be very, very complicated. And hitting him in the last 5 minutes with something so antagonistic, it's no wonder Elon responded that way.
Killing the company, but you're the head of the company. The buck doesn't stop with you.
I acquired X in order to preserve freedom of speech in America, the First Amendment. And I'm going to stick to that. And if that means making less money, so be it.
So I have to be, listen, I'm just being honest, right? I'm not trying to, like, get you or anything. I was just surprised that you would blame other people for killing the company. I mean, when you say the buck stops with the President of the United States, regardless of what happens, right? So, why would that question upset you?
If only Don Lemon and CNN actually thought that, every time there's a Democrat president, it was the previous Republican president who fucked it up. This is a classic. Both sides do this shit. So the buck doesn't stop with the United States president. It was such a terrible example. And a CEO is allowed to say, look, there are these external factors that are screwing us pretty hard. Saying like a catering company that fails in COVID because it's a pandemic is allowed to say, yeah, COVID screwed us. Does the buck stop with them? Yeah, I mean, technically they could have pivoted to something completely different, but it's completely fine to say that. It's just gotcha journalism trying to get this answer out of him, trying to antagonize him like this is just, there's no new information that's coming out of this. We're not gaining anything.
You seem upset by it, are you?
I think you.
And I'm not trying to upset you.
Well, you are upsetting me because the way you're phrasing the questions, I think, is not cogent.
It's a question upset. You seem upset by it, are you? Oh. Say the buck stops with the President of the United States, regardless of what happens, right? So, why would that question upset you? You seem upset by it, are you?
I think you.
And I'm not trying to upset you.
Well, you are upsetting me because the way you're phrasing the questions, I think, is not cogent.
It's not what?
Not cogent.
Cogent.
Yes. And our subscription revenue is rising rapidly, and I feel very optimistic about the future of the X platform.
Okay. Listen, I'm honestly, I'm not meaning to offend you.
There's more of this listen mannerism. More of this listen. I fucking hate that. No one likes that.
Intense person. Where does that intensity come from?
I was born that way.
And where does it? Okay. Listen, I'm honestly, I'm not meaning to offend you. You're an intense person. Where does that intensity come from?
I was born that way. And I had a tough childhood.
You did?
So, yeah.
How so?
Right, Walter Isaacson goes into it in the book. And
Bro is going to ask how so with 3 minutes left in the fucking interview. Is going to ask him about his childhood. Yeah, hold my beer. Well, I asked Elon Musk about his childhood in 2 minutes.
We only have a couple minutes left, so
all right,
too long to describe. So the one or two questions I can do, and then we'll have to call it.
Right. Okay. Again, I don't mean to upset you. Why are you?
This is such a classic like bully thing to do. Freak out on them for like an hour, and then be like, dude, like, what's the problem, man? What's the problem? Like, beat someone up for their lunch money, and then be like, dude, chill. This is exactly what Don Lemon is doing here. He just fucking bullied him for an hour. He interrogated him for an hour and then seemed like, you seem upset. Well, no fucking shit he seems upset. You're trying to frame him as a racist anti-Semite. Obviously he's going to be upset, dickhead.
No, I have a whole room full of people waiting to meet with me.
Okay.
So we're just going over time.
Okay. All right. I understand that. So when you talk about, you said you were born that way. Is that... Did you think that the way that you see the world has to do with your relationship with anyone, perhaps your father or someone in your family?
I think we're all affected by the people we grew up with. My aspiration is to do whatever it takes to extend consciousness into the future. That's my goal. To make life multiplanetary as part of extending consciousness into the future.
Have the past few years, and considering everything that's gone on, has it been difficult for you and your family life?
It's been okay.
So then, how do you see your legacy, Elon?
I just want to say shout out to Elon. That was such a genuine response. You could feel something behind his eyes being like, yeah, of course it's not easy. Of course it's hard. But for the most part, things have been the same. That's a human response where you can tell what they are feeling because they're still, after an hour of getting the shit kicked out of him by this journalist, he's still providing genuine answers.
How do you see how people see you in the...
First of all, I say that if I died knowing that I did what was right or did my best to do what was right, and even if in the history books they said I did wrong, I would still feel okay about that. I care about the reality of goodness, not the perception of it. I think we should view civilization as tenuous, as fragile. If you do study history broadly, you'll see that there's a rise and fall to civilizations. They don't always go up. So we should do everything we possibly can to preserve. They don't always go up. So we should do everything we possibly can to preserve and extend civilization as we know it.
Yeah.
And improve it. To become more enlightened over time. And we therefore want to address civilizational risks. We want to make sure that we don't have, for example, demographic collapse, which is the case in a lot of countries, just very low growth rate. We want to obviously avoid World War III, anything that is a civilizational risk. That's what I care about, civilizational risks. How do we extend consciousness into the future such that we are able to better understand the nature of reality? Yeah. That's what I care about. That's my motivation.
That response that you got out of Elon, Don Lemon, was what you could have got for the entire hour. That was brilliant. That last minute here was better than the entire interview combined. You actually got to understand Elon Musk's motive. You actually got to understand how he feels about his legacy, right? That was, by large part, a pretty new way that Elon has responded to a type of question like that. You know, Elon has said that he wants to wake up and not be sad about the future. He's mentioned things like this before, but this was a new way of phrasing it. You got something new out of him, and you should be happy about that. But the whole thing was a dumpster fire, so there's not much to be happy about from your end. But basically, as a viewer, I was really happy listening to Elon talking about that because it gave me perspective of why he's so passionate about DEI and the border and all that. He sees this as a civilization risk. It's an interesting way to simplify what his motives are.
I know you have to go. If you'll just give me, I'll do a rapid fire thing here. Is there anything that you would change about?
You can still see the nod from Elon Musk, the genuine nod here. He's not being condescending. He's not saying, ugh. He's treating him with respect. Meanwhile, Don Lemon is, laughing smug. He's doing all of these condescending things, but still to the very end, Elon is being respectful. Pretty incredible.
I'll do a rapid fire thing here. Is there anything that you would change about anything that you've done in your life, in the past or recently?
I've made many mistakes over the years. If I had a time machine, I'd go back and fix them, but I don't have a time machine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. So that's it. And as Elon would say, you be the judge.
Yeah, I'll be the judge. That was a fucking train wreck. Oh yeah, one funny thing. Don accused Elon later that he was uncomfortable because he was sitting in front of a gay black guy. No, Don, I don't think that's why he was uncomfortable. I think he was uncomfortable because you interrogated and gaslighted him for over an hour. So, anyway, that was the worst interview in modern history. And this was The Shani Show, and I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you in the next one.